Thanks, Ceann Comhairle. My question is in relation to the recent HICWA report, specifically about the Carlow, Kilkenny and Tipperary area. So basically, I just want to ask you, Minister, what steps have you taken to rectify the state of understaffing and lack of professional oversight in the social care system for children in the above-mentioned area since the recent HICWA report on foster care services in the county and in the other counties too? And if you will make a statement on that matter. Thank you.
Minister.
Okay, thank you, Deputy. I understand that you're referring to the HICWA Foster Care Service inspection for Carlow, Kilkenny, South Tipperary, Tusla region, which was published on the 3rd of October, and the inspection itself was carried out in May of this year. I was very disappointed with the issues raised in the report. To hear the word chaotic used to describe the management of this important work was of great concern. And while I noted that inspectors found that no child had been harmed, it is clear that significant problems were found, mostly resulting from staff vacancies and a high turnover rate. This has led to some children in foster care and their carriers having to deal with many changes in their social worker over the years. It was interesting to read, though, that where there was a stable social worker, children were very positive about their relationship. That 92% of children in care were in foster care in a family setting at the end of Q2 2019. This compares well internationally. A recent international comparison, which was carried out by NUI Galway, collected data published between 2015 and 2017. For example, in Wales, Scotland, Norway, and Australia, an average of 80% of children were in foster care. The figures were lower again in the USA at 75% and England at 61%. Carlow, Kilkenny, South Tipperary, though, is also one of the 5 areas that TUSLA has identified as having significant challenges in providing a consistently good standard of foster care. Staffing levels in these 5 areas are a major contributing factor to the challenges faced. I've asked TUSLA to review the reasons for the high turnover to staff and to identify and examine the contributing factors. TUSLA has also developed a workforce strategy which was approved by its board last spring. It aims to address staffing issues within the agency in the long and short term. The longer term solution is to increase the number of social work graduates and also to optimize the mix of skills between social workers and other grades to support them. My department is working with colleagues across government and educational bodies to increase the number of social worker graduates, and in the short term, TUSLA is pursuing a proposal to provide bursaries to social work students to encourage them to work with TUSLA.
Thanks, Ceann Comhairle. Minister, I mean, you describe it as disappointing. I would have to go further than that, say it's just totally unacceptable. I mean, we have a serious issue in this region in relation to TUSLA and in relation to their attitude, and I would say part of the reason for the high staff turnover is because there is a very, very defensive culture within TUSLA, within that region, and it doesn't lend itself to people wanting to work there. I mean, I personally have had numerous occasions where I've tried to get answers from TUSLA, and I've actually ended up having to send the correspondence on to yourself so that we can get an answer. And on one occasion, they actually sent me back a letter to say that we had sent it to the wrong address, when I've been dealing with the same TUSLA office in Kilkenny since I can't even remember. But that's the sort of attitude that you're dealing with. And this leads to children not having adequate supports and adequate help. And it's just, like, it's shocking, really. I mean, it should be focused on the needs of the child and what that child needs. And we have 1 in 5 children in that region without a social worker. And it was described as chaotic. We have people, there's not much aftercare support. So I suppose my specific question is, what from the budget, because I mean we heard there was extra money for this sector, how many social workers are we going to see recruited in this area, and how many aftercare and admin workers? Thanks, Ceann Comhairle.
Thank you, Deputy, and I want to first of all say that I really do note what you've said there in relation to that region, and you know that we will take account of that. I've tried to indicate some of the, I suppose, my own response in relation to that report as well, and therefore the drawing up of an action plan that's been done and the overseeing and the implementation of that. which hopefully will address many of the issues that you've identified here. I've also talked about the ways in which we are trying to move on the recruitment as well as the retention of additional social workers, and certainly in terms of the budgets that I've increased significantly over the last number of years. A lot of that has been directed to supporting TUSLA in doing that kind of recruitment. The other thing I want to say, though, and I don't have the specific answers to the questions, but I can get them for you in terms of what you've asked there. But this area, along with some other areas, they have also identified what they call an 8-point plan that kind of offers additional ways in which the monitoring and encouraging the change that needs to take place in those areas.
Funchion.
Would definitely welcome if you would specifically look into this region and as to why there is such difficulty and so many problems in this area, because obviously part of it is resources and we need additional social workers because there's so many vacancies, but we also need to ensure that those social workers stay, because the last thing, and we all know this, that a vulnerable child needs when there's already so many different changes and different things happening in their life, is to build up a relationship with a social worker and then for that to be just totally torn apart. And it then gives that child the perception that there's nobody there for them and that the state is failing them. And to be honest, the state is failing them in that situation. I mean, there's always going to be situations where staff have to change, but not to the level that we're seeing in this area. And it really isn't good enough, because I just think of the amount of children that are falling through the cracks. And it was also stated in the report that many children were only assigned a social worker shortly before the HICWA report commenced. So that makes me think, what would have happened if there was no HICWA report? Would they ever have gotten a social worker? So this area really, really needs to be specifically looked at. Thanks, Ceann Comhairle.
Thank you, Deputy Minister.
Thank you. I know that senior management in TUSLA is working to improve foster care in the region, and that as I've already indicated, HICWA has expressed satisfaction with the action plan that has been put in place by the area to address the shortcomings identified in the HICWA report. I take note of, again, and acknowledge your statement in relation to the inspection and the uncovering of the issues. I suppose that's why we do have inspection, why we have HICWA there, and we do have the response of TUSLA in terms of identifying quickly what it is that they need to do to put in place in order to bring about the changes. My officials have also engaged with TUSLA regarding, my own officials have engaged with TUSLA regarding the specific matters raised in the HICWA report on this area, and are monitoring actions and improvements closely. So I look forward to seeing the outcome of the implementation of that plan. And as I've indicated as well, that there are additional ways in which, in that particular area, as well as some areas, that TUSLA has put in place a way of trying to bring about the change so that the standards can be raised more quickly than we all wish to see.